We are live, Smash Mouth Sports. With me, as always, Cam Vieira. We're happy to have the producer of the Felger and Mazz show, James Stewart. Honored to have him for our 100th show. James, how you doing this evening?
100 shows. I'm well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for asking me. It is my pleasure to be part of your 100th show.
Yes, our 100th show. So the champagne bottles and lobster tails are coming later. So now we were just talking
about
shot
this. Of Patron, I'm good to go.
Let's do it, Patron. Now, tell you what we got to do. We should get you, the whole crew, Felger and Mazz, and go to Vegas next year for the draft. I don't know, because it was supposed to be this year, and I think next year, not in a month, but a year and a couple months from now, supposedly Vegas is going to get another shot at the apple. From what I hear, is that?
I've never been to Vegas before, so I'm all in for a Vegas trip. You can show me the ropes and
never been to Vegas.
Stars and boxing matches and whatever other adult entertainment there is. Be happy.
UFC, all the adult entertainment, fighting Conor McGregor. You know, it's all filming Hangover 4. It's all kind of part of the mix there. So from what I understand, obviously, there's been a lot. We've had a lot of talk with the guys in New England. I'm in Tampa. Obviously, the people in Tampa are still excited. We're still partying. Avocado tequila, avocado toast galore. But do I understand this correctly that you really wanted to fire Bill Belichick last week after Brady won?
Yeah. I feel like waiting. Bill Belichick has publicly said, he said it on a boat to Jimmy Johnson years ago, that the quarterback is the most important offensive position on the field. So Tom Brady is gone, and Bill Belichick treated Tom Brady like he was just another guy, up and through the point where Tom told him he wasn't coming back. And there were signs of him publicly and privately of Tom Brady not coming back. Bill Belichick did not care, or seemingly did not care, did not sell it, as the wrestling term would go, sell the fact that Tom Brady was leaving. So he being Bill Belichick had this media campaign of, Jarrett Stidham. And if Stidham doesn't work out, then Brian Hoyer is here. And then Jarrett Stidham doesn't do well in the offseason program, goes off to Texas, and here comes Cam Newton at a bargain basement price. So Bill Belichick lied to the media behind closed doors, in my opinion. And then he signs Cam Newton for a discount deal because he realizes that Jarrett Stidham, whatever his first name is, Stidham, doesn't have the goods that he hyped up privately to all the media members, all the media cartel. And Brian Hoyer's just a kind of an insurance policy. So now he's got to go get Cam Newton because he's the biggest name on the market, and he sucks. He can't throw. And he's coming off of this, that, and the other injury. So now Bill Belichick has taken the most important offensive position on the field and didn't care about it in the offseason. Fireable offense.
Wow. Now, earlier...
Too strong?
No, that's good. I like it. No, I like it. Hey, you know what? It is strong. It's very strong. I like it. It's a good take. It's very strong. I like it. I mean, so earlier we had on Jordy McElroy for the Patriots Wire. He had some interesting takes. Now, he said he thought Cam Newton was going to come back, and he wanted Cam Newton back. And he works for the Patriots Wire. So he's not a Tampa guy or a Philly guy. He is a Patriots Wire, Patriots beat guy, and he wants Cam Newton back.
So I don't want Cam Newton back. Do I think he's going to come back? I think there's a very high and good % chance that he'll be back.
I agree. At least as a backup, potentially.
So I think he will get in. I think Cam Newton will get an invite to training camp, but I don't think he gets the job. I think that you're looking at a Garoppolo situation. I think it's Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think it makes all the sense in the world. Bill Belichick made Jimmy Garoppolo a lot of money.
That's true.
Bill Belichick and Jimmy Garoppolo get along, and there's less of a selling point for Bill Belichick to get Jimmy Garoppolo to buy into the Patriot way, the Patriots program. So it just makes all the sense in the world that it's Jimmy Garoppolo who comes back here on a different contract, on a more team-friendly contract, on a contract with incentives, on a contract that doesn't violate the Bill Belichick $25 million per year salary cap.
Cam,
budget.
you want to weigh in on that? Because I know Cam's happy. Because I'll tell you right now, when Jordy said bring back Cam Newton, it's a good thing that everybody's on Zoom and everywhere else around the world. Because if it was in studio, I thought Cam might have had a bare-knuckle Conor McGregor fight, like a Las Vegas incident. That's what I thought was happening. Cam, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I asked Jimmy this last week. Is bringing back Cam Newton and handing him the keys week 1 a fireable offense? And he said
yes.
It is. And it is.
Fire him on the spot.
Because if that happens, Bill Belichick is telling you he doesn't care anymore. And it's just, and obviously Jimmy Garoppolo is the white whale, and for lack of a better term, of this offseason for the Patriots.
Is he Moby Dick? So Jimmy G's Moby Dick in the white whale?
He's the most logical option and the one that makes the most sense because he's been in the system and the coach believes in him. But Cam Newton, Jimmy, you said something last week, and I'm not lying when I said when I heard this, I had to stop myself from dry heaving. And I think you know where I'm going. You think it's possible that in 2022, not this year, then 2022, next season, not the one upcoming, that we're looking at GM Bill Belichick, head coach Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator Steve Belichick, and quarterback Cam Newton?
So it was a person who's given me good. So short answer, yes.
Wow.
Do I think it's going to happen? No. But the person
Can I just say, not to interrupt, but that is like a weird, bizarro fantasy that sounds terrible to me.
It's a horrible idea, but it was floated out to me by somebody who has given me really good information before. It's not my usual. So I am a typical one source person, but my source is really good, right?
It is.
So, and I have some other people who are okay sources. This one is, I would put in the category of okay, but he's given me enough intel where I felt comfortable and it's sports talk radio, so you can float. I don't have to be held to journalistic standards, even though I want to be right.
Check mark.
What's the different? What is it? Red and yellow is orange.
Yeah.
So it would be like an orange check mark.
Wow.
If we're doing the color scheme, like somebody who is more right than incarcerated Bob, but doesn't have a perfect track record. How's that?
Okay.
Wow.
So he floated the idea out that there was a meeting, which Zolak confirmed that there was a meeting. The timeline of the meeting might have been different. And there's an idea that Patricia might be the head coach and they might be bumping Bill upstairs. Now, when Bedard came out and said otherwise, I countered that by saying, well, what if Patricia's a rat and he has Robert or Jonathan's ear? And so that gives him a chance to be a future head coach of the New England Patriots. And so I stand by the idea that if Patricia has the right person voting for him to be the next head coach, it's possible. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I actually think Gerard Mayo is going to be the next head coach in the New England Patriots, but that's all determined as to when Bill Belichick wants to hang it up. And I think realistically, when Bill Belichick does hang it up, it's when Robert Kraft either leaves the earth or gives full power to Jonathan Kraft. Because I think that there's a feeling that John Kraft wants to move on from Bill Belichick as quickly as possible.
Wow. That was a lot packed into that. I mean, I got to say, when you go from
I think you put me on a 15-minute time limit, so I got to get all my high spots in. I got to
that was a good. You brought out a lot of good information there. I just, from an outsider's perspective, I don't think that Matt Patricia is viewed that favorably around the league anymore. I just really don't. And the fact that Stafford wanted to go anywhere else but New England, to me, is a horrible sign and a horrible indictment to Matt Patricia. Cam, you wanted to say something there?
It is, and you can trust when Jimmy says something, it comes true. Like, do you remember the report when Brady signed with the Bucks that it came out that he almost had to walk out of camp to get out of his contract his last year with the Patriots?
Yeah, it was before the Detroit Lions game at
that was Jimmy camp. Was the first one to say that he threatened not to get on the plane to a preseason game in Detroit. Otherwise, unless Kraft gave him the contract he wanted.
I mean, my percentage is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
You were the one who kept saying when Kyrie said he was staying that he wasn't. You're the one who kept saying he's lying. He's going to the Knicks, going to the Nets. That was you.
It was the Knicks, and then Mazz was like, you might want to look at Brooklyn. And what happened there was DeAndre Jordan was traded to the Knicks at the deadline that year, and he got a firsthand look at how the Knicks operated, and then he reported back to Kyrie and Durant and being like, "This place is a mess. We don't want to go here. We don't. You guys shouldn't come here." And they picked Brooklyn.
Wow.
So James, I got to ask you, because we're hearing a lot of wild scenarios. I know this is the off season. The Patriots guys are fantasizing about Jimmy G coming through the pearly gates, saving the franchise, bringing everybody back. Is there any concern that the Patriots are just done without Brady, that they were a quarterback-driven team with Brady? He was the juice. He was the Brady way, and that Belichick is going to keep trotting out Cam Newtons, Case Keenums, Brian Hoyers, Jared Stidhams, right, and just random guys, 7-8 win teams.
So that's how I feel. I don't want to speak for anybody but me, but unless Bill Belichick can just build a banger of a defense and get the equivalent of Trent Dilfer to run the system, but he's got an elite defense, I think that's Bill Belichick's dream of how to build a team. Builds it on defense, has a quarterback who manages the game and goes from there and has a chance to win a championship. I really think that because Bill's more of a defensive guy and he doesn't have to pay the quarterback big bucks, and defensive players kind of have a shorter and more inexpensive lifespan because their systems are value based. Right? Like Robert Kraft has said, we don't want to pay any one player more than 18% of the cap.
Correct.
Right. And so Tom Brady has made all of this real money. I think he's the third highest paid quarterback in the history of the league behind the two Mannings. So Tom Brady is getting paid. It's just, where is that money in relation to the salary cap?
Correct.
So I think that the Patriots were a quarterback-driven team in the later years. I think that Bill Belichick's his second year, his first season where Tom Brady took over the reins, I think that is more of a Bill Belichick dream scenario for running his franchise.
Right, great defense, game managing quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree. My biggest concern, if I was a Patriots fan, would be the fact that Bill Belichick cannot draft in this modern day era. These last 7, 8, 9 years, he's not done a good job of drafting, and I do think he took Tom Brady for granted. And just take a look at the Bucs. The fact that the Bucs added Leonard Fournette for cheap, Antonio Brown for cheap, Gronk for a reasonable deal. They signed many guys at a bargain deal, and I just don't feel like the Patriots, even if they do improve their defense and get a top 10 defense, I just don't feel that in the way the game is played now, where quarterbacks are getting $35, $40 million plus dollars, and defensive players are getting $20, $25 million. I just don't know that he's going to adapt very well with the way the game is played now, with the new salaries kind of out of control. Like you said, he doesn't want to pay 18, 19% of the cap, and Patrick Mahomes is getting $45 million on a $180 million cap, so he's getting close to 25%. So he would right out of the gate, he wouldn't take Patrick Mahomes.
So I think there are exceptions for what they would call generational players. Remember that Darrelle Revis got paid, and granted it was a 1-year deal,
right?
So that would be an exception. But I think if Bill Belichick were to be presented Aaron Rodgers as a potential trade option, I think Bill would look at it in a 2-year window at top of the market value, and I think that would be a scenario where, okay, let's go and let's see where that is. Let's see what we can do with Aaron Rodgers. But I think that there are a few exceptions to that.
Okay.
I used the Revis one. Brady got paid real money. Like the cap percentage, I don't care about. But are the Patriots going to pay real money to somebody? And at the time of certain deals, Logan Mankins, Rosie Colvin, Gilmore, Revis, the Patriots actually have paid out the real money. And if they don't pay the real money, in the case of Tom Brady, he gets a performance center that's right around the corner from the stadium. He gets tickets for the club section, which is a salary cap violation. But we don't talk about those things because that's real money. That doesn't count against the cap.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. I mean, here's what I feel. I was looking at the
cap
top.
Can be worked around.
You can work around the cap.
There's so much. illegal money that can be worked around.
Let me ask you this. I think the Patriots
Cam loves me when I'm unfiltered like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's a great appreciation where I can just go.
This is why
This is why they don't let me on the microphone as much, because they're afraid of what I'm going to say.
Well, you're the producer. You can get on there whenever you want, can't you?
No, I know, and I admittedly talk too much as a producer. I should be doing more. I should be doing less talking and more. Yes, Mike.
Well,
Ralphie
talks as much as you do.
Who does?
Ralph talks as much as you do, doesn't he?
Well, that's why they moved him into a corner office.
Yeah. That's funny. Let me ask you this. What about Dak Prescott? Do you think the Patriots should go after Dak Prescott, break all the rules, trade picks, give him the $38-40 million, and just make it happen?
I would trade Belichick to Dallas for Dak Prescott.
Wow.
I would trade Belichick to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers. I would rather have the smart quarterback or the good quarterback. And I don't know if I want Dak Prescott. I might lean more towards Deshaun Watson, but you're not trading Belichick. You know, Caserio just got rid of Caserio just left Belichick, so I don't think that I think they're good. I think they need a break. But I would go after Watson. I would go after Rodgers. And then, Garoppolo's that next tier, but Garoppolo's just an easy plug in because he knows everything and he gets along with Belichick, and we assume Josh likes him.
What are we giving up as far as draft picks was? Because Cam's like, we can't trade that coveted 15th overall pick.
I think Garoppolo gets cut.
No, I'm saying with Dak.
His contract isn't guaranteed, so they just cut him once. Once the 49ers get either Watson or Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or whoever their quarterback is.
Let's use Deshaun Watson. How much would you give up? 4 first-round draft picks for Deshaun Watson?
I would say to Caserio, tell me the price and I'll pay it, because once you have the quarterback, that's 2 picks, that's 3 picks, that's 5 picks, that's 10 picks. Because if you think you have the quarterback, there's no value that can be attached to that. In the same way, Belichick was traded for a first-round pick, and he helped install a system that led to the success of Tom Brady and has carried the Patriots for 20-plus years. So if you believe enough in the guy, hindsight being 2020, you rip the Washington football team for trading 3 first-round picks for RG3. But RG3 and Andrew Luck were supposed to be the 2 quarterbacks that were the best in that draft. So Washington thought they had the guy, and they went and got the guy. And who was to know that Kirk Cousins, the guy they drafted later on, was going to start more games than RG3? But
that's true. But in that scenario, RG3 was a bust, though. So I don't know that's the best analogy.
But at the time, that's like the Bears. They trade up to get Trubisky, right?
Another bad pick.
But that's all looking back on it, right? But you can, in the NFL, the turnover of rosters is probably about 2 or 3 years. So you can trade 3 first-round picks, go for the guy that you think is the guy, and if it doesn't work, you've lost those years, but then you can go out and get Nick Foles. You can get Alex Smith. You can get just another guy at quarterback, and you can use whatever real money, cap money, however you want to do the math equation, and you can fix the problem and turn it over. Look at what Brian Flores is doing in Miami. Like, that's a contending team in what, a 2-year turnaround?
Just last year,
the NFL is very. You can take chances in the NFL. Like, you can't take chances in the NBA. You can't really take chances in Major League Baseball or the NHL, because those are different salary structured and player movement leagues. In the NFL, the turnover is so quick. So, like, if you make a mistake and you draft the wrong quarterback, in 2 or 3 years, you just flip it and you're probably back on the uptick.
Yeah, I think the real big key, though, is you got to get it right. Yeah, I don't have a problem if teams swing for 3 or 4 picks and you get it right, then you're a genius. You get the next, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, whoever the guy is, you're a genius. But if you miss and you're an RG3, Jared Goff was a miss as far as I'm concerned, considering all the collateral
Goff got you to a Super Bowl.
He did. But they also had Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh. The team is loaded. So, it goes both ways. Carson Wentz, you could argue 1 year, but I would say Carson Wentz was a miss with the money, the collateral, all those guys. Personally, I've seen too many teams swing for the 3 and 4 first-round picks, and from my opinion, it doesn't work out. Most times, it doesn't work out. You're better off, in my opinion, loading up O-line and D-line for my liking.
Would you have done it for Baker Mayfield? Because that was the rumored deal. The agent said that the Patriots were going to trade up to the number 2 pick and draft Mayfield.
No, I never liked Baker Mayfield. So, no, I would not have done it for Baker Mayfield. But if you look at Baker Mayfield, his team is loaded with defensive players, offensive line, running backs, tight ends, receivers. If Baker Mayfield played for the Detroit Lions, the Cincinnati Bengals, he would be just as terrible as those guys.
Yeah, but Baker Mayfield makes enough plays where he gives you a chance to win.
That's
so,
true.
like, I like Baker Mayfield.
I don't know about
I thought
that.
he had enough big game presence and feel. So I would have made that deal. But again,
I would have drafted Baker for my fraternity, but not for my football team. I mean, that's I mean, I just have never been a fan of Baker Mayfield. I just personally, I like you brought up Andrew Luck. I like guys that are smart, cerebral, steady. You know, your linebacker, your defensive end can be a party animal, but your quarterback's got to be kind of boring, like Brady. You got to be avocado toast, 9 p.m., herbal tea, little eccentric, but. You know, I don't know. So you would trade multiple picks for Baker right now for the Patriots?
Yes, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
I think Mayfield is a plus in that quarterback.
He's a competent quarterback. Yes.
Yeah. I think he's probably, and I don't have all 35 quarterbacks in front of me, but I would just generally speaking, I'd put him in the top 10 as far as quarterbacks.
Baker Mayfield, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably have to look at a list and count it down, but I just I feel like he's a top 10 quarterback. And the Bill Belichick way, as documented in the Ian O'Connor book, is he can win with an average quarterback, so he can win with the 15th best quarterback. I think Cam Newton was like the 26th best quarterback, so he can't win with that.
Correct.
Wow, I'm just stunned. Baker Mayfield. I was not expecting you to be such a big in Baker Mayfield. So the fact that he's got
it's listening to good old Jim Ross for all those years talk about Oklahoma and how great they were.
Maybe that's
Jim Ross,
what it
of course, the wrestling announcer for those who don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. So you're a big wrestling fan too, which I watch wrestling a lot. So do you have a wrestling podcast as well?
I do. It's Wrestling Inside the Ropes on the 98.5 The Sports Hub page.
Oh, very cool.
It's very much downloaded, which I appreciate, and I think is fabulous that a hack radio producer does a silly podcast that people actually care about.
It's actually the top podcast they have at the Sports Hub, Preston.
It's the number one podcast. Oh, even Felger and Mazz and all the.
I don't know about just the podcast they do.
So
that's what I'm saying. The podcast is the biggest podcast
in the Beasley Media Group. It is the most downloaded podcast that isn't a radio show.
Wow, that's impressive.
Like we've had McCarthy on. He has hardcore baseball.
Yeah,
like Jimmy does inside the. Do you still do it with Sarge?
Yes.
The New England Revolution's PA announcer does it with him.
Well, I think the average baseball fan's like 70, so I could see how that would be hard.
I love baseball. So here's a funny thing. I'll just because we've done 20 minutes of football talk. I hate football.
Do you really?
I only care about like 3 or 4 football games a year. The Super Bowl, the AFC and NFC championship game, and then like a game here or there. Like,
no, I'm glad you told me that because I assumed you were a Patriots fan like all the others. So you hate football. That's interesting.
So I am a Patriots fan because the nice people at Beasley Media Group who sign my checks, we are also the rights holders.
There you go.
But what happened was I used to really enjoy football, but the games week to week are just so terrible. And we have been spoiled with the quality of play that we've seen. And then what we saw this year with the Patriots is what the rest of the league looks like, right?
Yes.
And
that's what I was telling Cam. Welcome to the NFL.
Yeah, I know. It's a horrible experience, right? Because in New England, we're watching Red Zone. So we're seeing all the good stuff, or we're seeing a defense make a stand. We're not seeing the in-between ugliness for the most part. So this is the year that we got to see 16 games of just, woof, this is the rest of the league. But I generally I go on, can I watch a neutral site sport, right? And the only time that I can watch football neutral site is AFC NFC championship game and the Super Bowl. Other than that, it's the Patriots because that's the job, right? And that sounds worse than I intend it to sound because I have a really good job. But I do
think Baker Mayfield might be a better WWE wrestler than he is a quarterback. So I can see. I
love that you're stuck on this Baker Mayfield take. Like you're offended.
It's one of our longest arguments. I've gone back and forth with him about it for years. And I'm not a huge Baker Mayfield fan. I just don't dislike him as much as Preston does.
I've never been a fan of Baker. I think I'm fascinated by it. I think it's great. If that's your guy, that's your guy. I'm quite stunned. So
I want to see where he ranks. I'm going to if I get a pop-up window here, I apologize. But what let's see. Let's go by quarterback rating here. That I don't like that. Because the quarterback rating is terrible. Why did that do that? I'm sorry. I was going to look up Baker Mayfield and make the case that he isn't as terrible. So if we go by passing yards, Watson, Mahomes, Brady third in passing yards this year. Matt Ryan, Josh Allen, Justin Hebert, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson. Baker Mayfield looks like he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18th
wow.
in the NFL in passing yards.
We'll go with that.
That wasn't as high as I thought it would be.
Let's not let facts get in the way of a good argument.
And his completion percentage is 63%, which
is terrible.
Which is funny because it's slightly under 2/3, but in
the modern day era, it's terrible. Yeah.
But here's the other thing,
especially with a run-centric team.
26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So he's not
solid.
Totally throwing the ball away. How many first downs? He's 15th, right? I mean, he's 18th in passing yards, but he's 5th. He's in that middle of the pack conversation. Yeah. So top 10 was a little strong, but I'd rather have him than Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan's capable. Old
Matt Ryan or young Matt Ryan?
I loved Matt Ryan. I covered Matt Ryan when he was at BC, so I like.
Oh, okay.
I like him a lot. He's a good kid.
By the way, I'm curious about this. The number one downloading for the brand there. Do you have a lot of wrestlers like on your show, or is it just you for a couple hours just drinking beer?
It's me and Mike Riley mostly. Every once in a while, if I have a wrestler friend who's looking to promote something, or WWE or AEW, send somebody my way. A lot of the time, so it's layered, right? So Cam would know. Felger and Mazz, we don't do a lot of guests, right?
No, it's one of Felger's big commandments. No guests.
It's because guests generally, unless they are huge names, don't draw, right?
Correct.
So if we had Tom Brady every week, we would do that. The interview would suck, generally speaking, because Brady wouldn't say anything.
Right.
But people would listen just in case he does, or you'd get the really broad, the broadcast, the person who's clicking through their radio to stop and listen because it's Tom Brady. It's the name value. It's why is Shaq on the TNT desk? Well, he's become funny as time has gone on, but initially Shaq wasn't good at the desk. But people know who Shaq is. When Shaq was on the Celtics did their best TV ratings in the franchise's history.
That's true.
Wow, really? I did not know that. That is stunning.
Right? Because people know who Shaq is. Shaq has that transcendent, we use the word transcendent, appeal to people. So that's a long way of, most weeks it's just me and Mike, me and Sarge. But every once in a while we'll pop on somebody, Brutus Beefcake went into the Hall of Fame, so we talked to him.
Wow.
I talked to Elias or Dean Ambrose or Kurt Angle, or I've talked to John Cena and CM Punk and all types of different people over the course. Mick Foley. over the course of the last few years. But generally speaking, it's week to week. It's the news of the week. There's a lot of pay-per-view events. So we're fortunate where we're doing recap shows on pay-per-view events. But I handle the wrestling podcast like I would a normal sports talk show. And it's not generally like, okay, we're going to, because wrestling podcasts, they've had this format of like, okay, it's after a show, so we have to go match by match by match. And it's like, no, like, what was the most important thing to me? What was the most important thing to Mike Riley, Sarge? What I call him, his nickname, Maz gave him the nickname Sarge. I call him Mike Riley because he was my intern. He was my intern years ago. And so I always knew him as Mike Riley.
Cam, what's your opinion on wrestling? Because I know, Cam, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, when I was younger, I watched it, but I don't watch it much anymore. I watch WrestleMania every year. Because,
you do?
I feel like I would be left out of the loop if I wasn't. So, I mean, I do watch WrestleMania. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, I did see the stuff with Gronk last year with Enes Kanter appearing whenever a Boston athlete would make an appearance on there.
But yeah, overall, they're trying to do more mainstream stuff because that's always been their thing. I mean, Vince McMahon and the WWF,
it's a wildly
dating back to WrestleMania 1, where they had Cyndi Lauper and Billy Martin.
They had Mike Tyson and all that with Stone Cold. That was huge. And Floyd Mayweather.
Mike Tyson was a swing for them. Was a major swing.
Yeah.
And this bringing it back to the football discussion, they overpaid for Mike Tyson at the time, but Mike Tyson coming in got them enough marketing ideas that they could go to Steve Austin, and then lo and behold, WWF has the Attitude Era. Yeah. And then they overtake WCW in the Monday Night Wars, and Vince McMahon and his company is still here, and Eric Bischoff is doing a podcast called 83 Weeks, which is looking back on the rise and fall of World Championship Wrestling.
Very interesting.
And by the way, Eric Bischoff is making a ton of money doing that podcast. So it's not like we're holding bake sales for Eric Bischoff.
Exactly. Millions of dollars. Now, the WrestleMania is coming to Tampa. You going to be coming down to Tampa for that in a couple months?
No chance.
Oh, okay. So they don't let you travel. You got the #1 podcast there, but they don't let you travel for. Is it because of COVID or because of?
Yeah, it's because of COVID.
Okay.
The next time, so I have kept a very small bubble. But I will tell you that
you're talking about COVID, because of COVID.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Dallas is the next year of WrestleMania. That's kind of what I'm planning to do. But with all the thing, like, I want to be able to interact with people without a mask. I want to be able to hug a complete stranger, because this is what's lost on when we go to sporting events, right? And something great happens.
You're high-fiving.
We probably don't know the person to either our left or to our right. But when something positive happens, the person in front of us wants a high five, the person in back of us wants high five. You're giving out hugs, you're handing drinks down the aisle, you're handing money down the aisle, although we're becoming a cashless society, so maybe that's not the case anymore. But I want to be able to walk into a building and feel like I can hug the person next to me, high five the person next to me, stand elbow to elbow with somebody and cheer, and not be restricted by a mask or concern that the person next to me is a silent carrier of COVID, and that I'm going to have to go home and, potentially be infecting people and not knowing it. Right.
Yeah.
So when we get to that point in society where I can go to an event and I can hug somebody and pass them a beer, I can buy a stranger a beer if I want to, that type of stuff, then I'll travel, then I'll feel good about all that stuff. But until then, it's like I have a wonderful house. I can pause something if I need to go to the bathroom. I will be utilizing my DVR and my TV and all that stuff.
But in previous years, you've gone to the other WrestleManias as part for work and so forth. Yeah. Okay.
I went to
media. You get media credentialed, obviously, because of your podcast. So you go to the box or the stage, or
so I like going to these events as a fan. Do I get a comp ticket? Sometimes. But I usually go to, I've like the last 4 WrestleManias, WrestleMania weekends I've gone to, not last year, obviously, because we're all locked down. But I went Dallas, Orlando, New Orleans, and New York, and I was in the crowd. I used some of my relationships to navigate around and maybe have a front row seat as an invite of somebody. But generally speaking, I don't use the media credential card, just because. So with wrestling, it's a little bit different, I feel like, because if you're backstage, you can't feel a show. And I still go to sporting events and wrestling events to feel the show and enjoy the show, because at my core, I'm still a fan. And I've never, in the 20 plus years that I've been doing sports radio, I never lost being a fan. And that's the most important thing to me is, yeah, I can go back and I can, sit in the media room and I can ask questions. I choose not to. I'd rather talk to somebody behind a closed door and get a real answer instead of some dog and pony show answer in front of a microphone. But I still want to be a fan, and that's important to me. Being a fan and working and getting a paycheck in the business is like a really cool thing, but I never want to lose that fan feel. And
absolutely.
So, if that makes me a bad person, or if that makes me, it's not like, I'm probably closer to Jared Carabas of Barstool when it comes to, how he feels about baseball. That's how I feel about just general sports.
Nice. Very cool. No, we appreciate that. We appreciate your time. Do you get into UFC at all, or not too much? It's more.
I am a very, very casual UFC fan. So like, if there's a fight on, I'll have it on in the background and I'll kind of follow along, but I couldn't tell you who the champ is. I mean, I know Conor McGregor. I know Dana White. You could probably throw a few other names at me and I'd be like, oh yeah, I've heard of him, or no, I haven't heard of him. But that's
what's funny. I was going to ask you about Brock Lesnar, because he was WWE, UFC. He's bound.
No, I did watch the Brock fights.
Yeah.
Right now, Brock I think he lives just over the Canadian border. He married Sable, if you remember from the Attitude Era, Sable.
Yeah.
So he is a woodsman. I think he's
a Viking. He's an angry Viking.
I think he lives about 10 miles from actual real electricity. Like he's just over the Canadian border, but he's off the grid.
Wow.
So I admire that.
Wow. And
very
cool.
Whenever he comes back to WWE, he gets $15 million a year ish. Base salary, appearance fees, merchandise, all that stuff. But that's been his yearly contract the last few years. He's not under contract to anybody right now. I don't think he's going to do UFC anymore, because I think when he floats the idea out of it, Vince McMahon is just going to be like, okay, Brock, what's the number? What's the number that keeps you out of UFC? And plus, I think he has to go through a whole drug appeals case because he flunked it. They're all on something. All athletes are on something. And whether it's been flagged or it hasn't been flagged depends on the league. But I don't think Brock Lesnar's doing UFC anymore. I think he'll do wrestling. I think he did one more fight just to see if he could do it. He could do it. But Brock Lesnar doesn't get talked about. He's one of the great attractions of the last 20 years. Like, he's just stupid athleticism and smart business sense too.
Yeah, he's a great, like you said, great athlete, great businessman. I watched UFC wrestling. He bounced around, and I remember years ago he tried out for the Vikings. He was supposed to be one of the last guys. He almost made the team or so forth. I was like, wow. I mean, he does it all for sure. So excellent. Well, James, we definitely appreciate your take. You gave us a great show. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate your time. Cam, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up here?
That's about it.
There
nice.
We go.
Your setup from Guitar Center looks really nice.
Thank you.
So that's a joke, because
that's a running joke between callers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So like a year and a half ago or so, Jim Murray had a caller call up, and the caller was giving him guff about his content choices, and Jim Murray suggested that he go to Guitar Center and start a podcast. So sometimes when Cam has tweeted me, about questionable show content, I have tweeted him the link to Guitar Center. So I'm happy. I am appreciative that you invited me on your podcast. Your equipment looks really nice.
Thank
I
you.
hope you spent a lot of money at Guitar Center because they're a small business, right?
Of course.
Okay. So seriously though, thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you tell Cam that you've got the #1 podcast and he needs to be nicer to you, right?
But it's a niche. That's the problem.
Absolutely.
And I don't care. It's all for a show. Like Cam and I had a conversation on Paul Pierce Day. Because Cam, and if I'm speaking for you and I'm speaking out of term, I think for a long time you didn't think that I actually liked you. You thought that
you're right. I didn't think you liked me at all.
And when Cam catcalled me at Paul Pierce Day at the Celtics game, I came over, had a normal conversation with him, and I was like, I don't hate you. Like I don't. There are so few people in this world that I actually legitimately hate. And a caller who I'm giving guff to isn't one of them.
Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely. Well, we definitely appreciate it, and we appreciate your time. We'll definitely have to have you on again, whether it's football. Now that we know you don't like football, I thought you were a big football guy, so now we'll know.
Either. To be fair, I didn't know that either.
No, I'm a baseball, basketball, hockey, football. Those are my priorities. Everybody thinks I'm just an NBA hoop head, like, and historically, like the youngest photo that my parents have of me is a shot with me in a Celtics onesie. So my basketball runs deep, but the first sport I ever really loved was baseball, and still love it to this day. I'm back-to-back fantasy baseball champion.
What's fun? Nice. What's funny about me? That was my first sport too. Was baseball as a kid with Little League, but as time got older, baseball kind of went down the depth chart. Football, basketball, UFC, other sports went up the depth chart. So that's just kind of one of those things of progress.
Baseball's hard to watch these days.
It's just the game. There's a lot of things, and in Tampa, the Rays did well this year, but we've had some issues. And then years ago, when I was a kid, we were supposed to get a baseball team, and they went to Miami, the Marlins, and that whole crazy thing. So, but we appreciate your time again. Great show, great takes, and thanks again for all your insight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great night.
You too.